Hey, welcome to the Sequential Artist Workshop Pro Calls. Every week we ask another creator, another graphic novelist to come sit down with us and tell us where they came from, what were the first things they made, what did they make recently, how did they do it, what are they thinking about now, how are they going to move forward, how do they keep going, all those things, career things, art things, feeling things, creative things. Every month it's a new creator, new challenges, new stories. Come check it out. Come sit down with us. You can sit down live for some of these calls by being a member of our groups. You can find us at learn.sawcomics.org. Come check it out. Come be a graphic novelist with us. Come join us on the socials. Sometimes it's Comics Workshop, sometimes it's Saw Comics. Either way, come check us out and welcome. Yay! Nicole, we made it.
Yay!
It was a while we reached out and you told us about some of this. So anyway, welcome everybody. Nicole is a proud University of Florida grad and a member of Women in Animation. And tell me if I got this right, you worked in TV at WGBH for a while and at DreamWorks for 3 years. And you're going to give us a little info on webcomics, which is definitely something that here in the Saw community, we're a little behind on. I am at least, and I think as a result, Saw in general is. So we're like, what are webcomics? but we are interested in finding out how they work. And so we're interested in having you here, but also any of the ins and outs of the media and culture world that you've seen. We'd love to hear that too. So
Awesome.
welcome. And I hand it over to you. I'm gonna do a little I'll be in the chat summarizing things you say, but in general, we just want to hear what you have.
Awesome. Yeah, I can just get started. First of all,
Great.
thank you guys so much for coming and listening to my talk. This is really exciting. This is like my first time doing this, so if I'm a little awkward, that might be why. Um, but uh, but yeah, no, let me share my screen. Give me 1 second. Let me know if everyone can see this.
Okay, it's coming up. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so I'll just do like a little introduction to me. So my name is Nicole Williams. Um, I am here to talk to you guys about webcomics. I'm really excited because it's a big passion of mine over the past couple of years, and it's something I know is becoming like a big booming business, especially in the entertainment space. And so kind of my title is From Sketch to Screen and How to Make Your Webcomic Stand Out from a DreamWorks Insider. And so you might be wondering, who am I? So I'm a writer, I'm an artist, and I'm a former DreamWorker turned creative consultant. And I'll talk a little bit more about that like towards the end. But long story short, I was a UF alum studying, my major was African American Studies, and I also studied mass communications and sociology. And but I've always had this burning desire to be a creative, and I've always been a writer in that way. And so I was at UF, and then I went to Boston University for television production and management to get my master's. And I got very lucky through connections through that, and also working with women in animation. I got very lucky, and I got to work at DreamWorks as an executive assistant. So I worked for the SVP and VP of development. And for those who don't know, development is basically the very beginning stages of a film, kind of looking at movies, TV shows, comics, all kinds of books, all kinds of kind of general stories and concepts, and trying to see, okay, how could this be made into a film? Is it something that people would want to see? Is it kind of 4-quadrant, which kind of means like does it appeal to as many people as possible, that sort of thing. And so I helped them with a lot of that scheduling, and also some creative things for a couple different films. And so after I left DreamWorks, I began to kind of start my own business. And I have experience helping lots of different people and mentoring internships, lots of college students, lots of mentoring. We had like a launch program which worked with HBCUs, and that was a really great opportunity and really inspired me to want to do it myself. And so I'll talk about that a little bit later, but kind of getting into some of the things I've worked on. So my very, very first project was Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, which is a crazy thing still to say. It was probably my first project when I like stepped foot on campus, and I feel so lucky to have been a part of that project. I also worked on Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken, Trolls Band Together, which is the third Trolls movie, Kung Fu Panda 4, which is also very surreal to work on, and The Wild Robot, and my personal favorite. It's kind of an honorable mention because I'm not credited on it technically because it's a TV film. It went on Netflix, but there's a great quote from Orion in the Dark, which was one of my boss's projects, that says, "Maybe being scared is just a part of life. I think you just need to feel the fear and do it anyway." And that's kind of my thesis of this whole slide deck in this presentation is if I want you guys to take anything from this, it's that, you might be scared or you might be shy to talk to people, or you might be like, oh, well, I don't know if my project is necessarily right, or it's maybe it's not broad enough, maybe not enough people will be into it. And I think if anything, just try. I think that's really just kind of my advice, if I have any for you. I think it's just helpful to just try. You never know what could come out of it. So kind of going into what we'll cover. So the beginning, the history of comics, web and otherwise, revolutionary changes, so indie comics, and some of the biggest hits, things that are coming soon. So the most recent studio announcements and development. And so things that are coming out in the next few years. And then what does it all mean? What does it mean for the average illustrator or the average artist? And so the beginning, the history of comics, web, and otherwise. So first of all, what is a comic? Most people know this, but it's the use of images arranged in a deliberate order to tell a story or convey information. And this can range from comic strips to graphic novels to alternative art and zines. But it's usually a physical medium like a book. And then a web comic, of course, is any kind of comic published on the internet, such as a website or mobile app. And some of those restrictions of a traditional book or newspaper is lifted. And so what's nice about a lot of web comics is you have so much freedom to explore all kinds of different mediums, all kinds of different genres, things for all ages, without some of those restrictions that you have when you're dealing with a publisher. And so the rise of the webcomic. So for people who are younger, you might not have heard of CompuServe or LiveJournal, but online comics and pre-internet was you had to upload things like web comics, and this was your like contribution to society. It was just CompuServe. It was not all of these different mediums and webtoons or like YouTube or any other kind of social media. It was like, this is just kind of where the internet is. And then over time, more and more forums got created. And so people realized during this time, you actually don't need to know how to be a great artist. You don't have to know how to draw to be a cartoonist. And one of the biggest forums was LiveJournal. And then, of course, now we have things like DeviantArt, Tumblr, Webtoons, and tons of other online platforms to share comics with a special mention to Tapas, which is an app that is also very popular on top of Webtoons. And actually, this picture on the right here is the first ever webcomic that was created. And I think it's a great example of how, it kind of blew up over time. But, this isn't a particularly incredible moving piece of Van Gogh art, right? It's just a piece of art that someone decided to make and take kind of their own artistic license on it, and people tend to really like it. It's called Witches and Stitches, if anybody's interested in it. But because of things like Webtoons and other kinds of apps, I think that's where we got some of the biggest web comics out of. So Homestuck, of course, is one of the biggest ones. I remember that from when I was a kid and being like, I'm not really sure what this is, but it has like 20 million views on it. And of course, there are more and more things that have come out over time. I know Nowhere Girl is a very popular one. Penny Arcade, of course, Girl Genius is another very popular one. That was actually a print comic first, and then it actually blew up because it was posted online. So it was a print comic, and then was also hosted online and kind of blew up after that. And so I wanted to kind of get into what it means to have your own creative idea. And so you might have heard of the term intellectual property or IP before. Um, Really, it just refers to creations of the mind. So inventions, literary and artistic works, designs, and symbols, which are protected by the law to give creators exclusive rights to use and benefit from them. But to simplify even more, it's entertainment speak for any piece of original content that has been released. But the key here is that it has to be recorded. So I think a great example of this is kind of going through some of the examples here. Um, Arby's, no one else can use the slogan "We have the meats," right? Like that is their slogan. It's protected by copyright, which is an additional um, part of the law that helps to protect an original idea. Same thing with Nike. No one else can use this symbol. No one else can use "Just Do It" as their slogan. And then getting to art specifically in terms of cartoons, animation, on the bottom left here is the very first drawing of Phineas from Phineas and Ferb. And the story behind this is that the creator of Phineas and Ferb was out to dinner with his family and was just doodling on on a napkin, actually, and was like, I just keep drawing this like triangle-headed kid. Like, I'm not sure what this is about. And now it is like, I think, the longest running animated show on Disney. So, it can come from literally anywhere, and kind of this triangle shape, like everyone kind of knows what character that is. And so that would count as another example of IP, right? Is everyone kind of knows that this is Phineas. Um, and next to it, we have like the troll dolls. So again, for people who are maybe a little bit younger, they started out as toys in the 80s and are a little bit scary in my opinion. But what is cool about it is, getting to work on one of the Trolls franchises. The IP is actually the dolls, and so people got the rights to the dolls over time and were able to make their own kind of characters out of that. So if you've seen those movies, them being able to have like the Poppy character, like the Justin Timberlake character, all these different things, and take that kind of artistic license is based off of this IP or intellectual property. And then going to Shrek, which I'm sure most people here have heard of. It's actually based off of a children's book. So it's just called Shrek, and it had a quite different story. And I think what is beautiful about creatives is they took a kind of a very simple story and made it, like, in my opinion, one of like the best love stories out there, and made it a comedy and made the characters really rich. And I think, having that kind of original idea is really just the start of it. And that's a lot of what we did in development at DreamWorks, is taking, a children's book or a comic, or even, I know some people nowadays are taking like tweets and are like, we should make a movie out of this. And so that original tweet, right, would be the intellectual property. And if there's anything I want you to take away from this, again, is just to like make your art. I think draw, write, design, animate, code if you're into gaming, and you never know what could come out of it. I think what's really cool is, all of these ideas, all of these stories, all of these quotes, all of these slogans were just created by a person, and it, blows up into this this big thing that is a world-renowned piece of creative identity, which is cool. And so getting into some revolutionary changes in the indie comic adaptations and some of the biggest hits. Um, So this is a graph that I kind of compiled from a couple different sources, Forbes and a few others. But the pink line here is the global impact of comics, and the blue here is the USA. And so up until 2030, of course, after 2020, which was during the pandemic, a lot of people were, at home and were reading a lot more and getting into more niche forums and spaces online. And comics absolutely blew up in the US, but it is a humongous market, especially in Asia, in terms of not just the comics itself and the readership, but adaptations and people turning these stories into TV shows or films or games or all kinds of different things. And so getting into some of the biggest hits. I don't know if any of you guys recognize these, but I kind of separated it into slow burns versus overnight successes. And so, Tower of God is a huge, huge, huge anime that is based off of a webcomic. And next to it, we have Cyanide and Happiness, which I first learned about from their YouTube channel. But a lot of people don't know that they also started as a webcomic, just a couple of short frames with these, very silly and very simple characters, and really blew up, I think, after they launched it onto their YouTube channel. And so it started as a comic, and then they brought people together to make it animated. And then from there, it's kind of branched off into a couple other different things as well. I know they have a couple books out, published, and all kinds of different things. And then looking at overall overnight successes, I'm sure a lot of us have heard of Heartstopper, which is a live action show on Netflix that was a huge, huge hit over the past couple of years, but was also based off of a webcomic. It was a webcomic that was put out and kind of immediately got a lot of traction, and a lot of people really liked this sweet, queer love story. And Netflix also seemed to like this queer love story and was like, this should be something that should hit the small screen on our laptops or on our TVs. And so that's just another example, I think, of just how many different kinds of comics there are as well. You have everything from things that were made from this would be called like a manhwa, so not manga, but because it's a Korean story. But you have everything from anime style to you have kind of this rudimentary kind of everything is in the expressions kind of character for Cyanide and Happiness. And then you have Heartstopper, which was adapted into live action. So there's all kinds of different ways that you can do a web comic. And I think in terms of the different ways that I think comics have really changed over time, I think particularly with alternative comics and web comics is subject matter. I think it opened comics up to a lot of different topics, from deeply, deeply personal to political to history to memoir, slice of life type of things. And so I think any kind of story that you think could be worth telling, absolutely could be turned into a webcomic and could be picked up eventually to be a film or an animated show, or even if you just want to make it into a book or a comic itself. Starting with a webcomic, I think, is a great place to start. It also helped a lot with just expression in general for people. I think it legitimized experimental and non-traditional art styles as well, which I think is really cool. And I think it gave creators a lot more freedom for creative license as well. They kind of own their own project. They're not, selling it to a publisher necessarily. And I think it really elevated webcomics in particular. I think really elevated comics to the next level. I think it really globalized it and made it so at pretty much anywhere you can read somebody's webcomic. And I think that's great just for exposure in general. And so looking into some things that are coming soon. So these are just a couple of examples that I was looking at. Most of these are available on Webtoon, but this is another great example of just the diversity of different stories that we have. So there's Third Shift Society, which is a live action series that they're taking from this web comic, and the Jim Henson Company is adapting it, which I think is really exciting. And then this is an acronym for number 2 here, which is Love Advice from the Great Duke of Hell, which is being turned into a live action film, but it's based off of a manhwa or a Korean Korean anime, if you want to call it that. And it's a rom com, and Imagine Entertainment is adapting it into live action film. And then we have Lore Olympus, which I know is a really, really popular one on Webtoon, which is being adapted into an animated series, again, by the Jim Henson Company. And they're looking to put it on Amazon Prime, so look out for that. And then we have Stagtown, which is a horror comic that they are adapting into a horror film. And Lucky Chap Productions is adapting it. And Lucky Chap is Margot Robbie's production company, which I think is really cool and interesting for her. And then kind of the biggest recent news that has happened was that there were talks recently, and they recently put out a press release that Webtoons and Disney are doing a partnership. And so Webtoon and Disney will build and operate a new digital comics platform to bring 35,000 comics from Marvel, Star Wars, Disney, Pixar, and the 20th Century Studios under one service. And so my interpretation of this is I imagine they're trying to do like what they're trying to do with Quibi, if anybody remembers Quibi during the pandemic, but they are trying to mix very popular franchises from Disney. So obviously Marvel and Pixar and all these different things, and bring, for example, a lot of those Marvel comics that are kind of only available if you go out and you buy them. But if you have Disney Plus, I think they're trying to make it so that you can access them at any time. And they're trying to make some original series as well by working together and bringing some things from Webtoons that are very popular and putting them on Disney Plus as well, which I think is really exciting. And I think that's very, very telling of just how serious people are taking Webtoons now. I think that's a really exciting development. So kind of the point I want to make is that art is for everyone, and there are artists from all mediums that have made a lot of your favorite things. I think a great example of this is if anybody has watched Steven Universe, Rebecca Sugar, who is the creator, started off as a comic artist. She was an art student and was just making comics with a lot of her classmates, and doing her courses and everything. And now some of those characters from her first comics are in the show now. I know the character Sadie and I believe Lars were originally characters that were in her original comics, and she kind of adapted it into the story that she wanted to tell. And I think what has been cool is, from working at DreamWorks, I've been able to see that some of my favorite artists, and I'm sure some of your favorite artists, started as comic artists or cartoonists or illustrators or caricaturists, and they were able to kind of hone their skills in a way to tell a story in a different kind of way. Like, it's kind of all about being adaptable, which I think especially in the entertainment business is important, if that's something that you want to get into. So what does it all mean? It means that yes, you can do it. I think regardless of what kind of artist you want to be, again, I think just being able to put your stuff out there, even if it just means posting on Instagram once a day a panel of a comic that you're working on. You never know, and even if it doesn't take off right away, there have definitely been cases like those slow burns that I talked about, where the creator put it out, it was kind of stagnant for a long time, and then years later people caught onto it and it became a big hit. So you never know, and it's important just not to give up. And going from this, I think something else that's very important if you are interested in comics is to understand just how big it's going to be in the future. So there have been 50,000 to 200,000 new comics published just in 2025. So this is new comics. So people are just sharing them with each other, whether it's on Webtoon, whether it's on Tapas, whether it's on one of the free platforms. People are just experimenting a lot right now, which is really exciting for creatives. And I think especially if you are looking to collaborate in some way and do something in the entertainment space, I think it's always, any recruiter will tell you to just put your stuff out there, just be able to make it readily available so that they can take a look at what your style is, or what you like to write about, or that sort of thing. And it's also important to understand, I think, that you don't have to go into entertainment as well. I think there are just so many different roles and so many different paths to be a creator. And I think that's something that I learned a lot at my last job, was there's just so much that goes into every single piece of art. And I don't know, I just think that it's important that you don't lose what it is that you love so much about art. If you do decide to publish it, or you want it to be a kind of a big hit and that sort of thing. um, and so what do you do if you want to create a comic and get it published? So assemble your team. So embrace your artist friends. Your community is everything. And I part of why I love, for example, Saw so much is that the community is just amazing, and really inclusive, and everybody really props each other up and loves to help each other. And I think particularly in the animation community as well, that's something that I noticed. People just really love to make art and make art together. And so if I could give an example, so say Jane Doe has an idea that she wants to make a story about, I don't know, living fruit. And she's like, I just had this idea of this like squad of fruit for for years and years and years. But I'm a writer. I don't really know how to draw very well. And so but she remembers, oh, I have a friend from college who is a really great artist and who's studying art. And so maybe they'll talk about the idea and they'll be able to collaborate. But then, you have, okay, so you have Jane Doe, you have Sam Smith, and then they decide, oh, but we want to take this to the next level. Like, what's a way that we can get people to get more eyes on it? And they remember, oh, I know Guy, and Guy just edits Minecraft videos all day. That's all he does, and he does it for fun, and he does it because he loves it. And so now this is like a team of people that's making a creative project together. And maybe Guy can make a sizzle reel of your idea, and that's something that you can show people if you do want to take it to the next level. So that's just an example of, like, embrace your artist friends, embrace your community. And you can always take it always feels a lot better, I think, when you're taking a big risk like this. If you're deciding, yeah, I want to go on this endeavor, I want to make this project, it's always very helpful just to be able to do it with people who kind of not just get you, but get your project, and are able to kind of use your skills together. The other part of this is that social media doesn't have to be scary. So I know, especially for myself, I'm pretty much an introvert. So I always feel weird. Like, even for this project, I felt weird even posting about it on my Instagram, just because I'm like, I don't know, like it's strange, right? It's weird to like self-promote yourself, but it really is something that is essential, especially right now, especially in the digital age. Yes, people who are in your life are gonna see it, but lots and lots of people who really love your art, or really like your story, or who are really interested in things that you're interested in, might be able to find you and create a community just based off of that. And on top of that, there are lots of different ways for you to just get started. So crowdsourcing is a huge thing right now. So Patreon is really, really huge for a lot of comic artists. Kickstarter is another good example, GoFundMe, that sort of thing. And there are also lots of online courses, free online courses and talks just like this. And Saw also, sorry, I'm plugging you guys so much, but Saw has a lot of really great resources and things, free resources, lots of tutorials and things, workshops that are on their YouTube, and once again, social media is your friend in this kind of thing. There are so many ways that you can improve your craft and be put in spaces, you know, whether there's like a comics Reddit or like a Discord for people who want to make web comics about your specific thing that you're interested in. There's so many different kinds of resources and friendly spaces and access to exposure, so you can grow your audience. And the biggest thing that I remember from working at DreamWorks even is that word of mouth right now is your biggest asset. So just people talking about it, not just online, but being like, oh, I really liked this story because it connected with me in some way, and that's how your kind of your audience grows, because they're able to connect with you in that way. Um, and so that's kind of the gist of my story. Speaking of socials, if I can plug, so I'm totally Noli 10 on all social platforms. My DMs are open all the time. I love talking about art, and particularly comics, and it's something that I'm really passionate about. And animation in particular is something I'm really interested in. So if that's something that you want to chat about, I would love that. And then I just wanted to also plug my business as well. You know, if you're interested in kind of deciding, okay, I have this idea, I kind of know where I want to start, or even if you have your whole thing put together, say you have a comic already that you've drawn out, you kind of finished it, but you're like, I actually don't know where to put this. I don't know which spaces to put my energy into. I'm not sure how to promote myself. You know, I've experienced helping lots of different people from different stages of their creative journey kind of figure out how to market themselves. What is it that about your project that you think, you know, would be something that is broad enough that people will lots of different people will be able to enjoy it, if that's something that you want? Or are you okay with you know, being in a small kind of community and being you know, supported by people via, you know, a Patreon, like a small kind of community in that way as well? And so I can put my website in the chat if anyone is interested in that. My email is also there as well. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn as well. And I think that's it. I think that's all I've got for you guys.
Well, we can definitely take questions. Oh, and there's a weird echo. Oh, now it stopped. I've got a couple questions if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm just gonna just hit some random one. I wrote some, but I'll just
Mm.
ask the first one that I see, which is how in like in DreamWorks and the big sort of media places, how are
Mhm.
they finding things that they want to adapt? Are they paying people to sort of scroll webtoons and saying this, and are they going to parties and or are they not searching and they let pitches come? How do you get past the giant pile on somebody's desk? Stuff like that.
Yeah. So it's a lot of different things. So a lot of times they will literally go to a library and they'll go through. So depending on the studio, so because DreamWorks is an animation studio, and they would make family movies, so primarily for kids, but for families, sometimes they would literally just go to a library or a bookstore and go through the children's book section and say, okay, I'm going to read, you know, 5 of these tonight, or maybe I'm going to read a few to my kids and see which ones they interact with the most, and then see if maybe this is something that eventually people would be interested in. And the other part of it is, unfortunately, a lot of times to get your kind of idea in front of an executive, um, you would have to be represented. So there are literary agents and all kinds of different people that are kind of in between that stage. But I would say it kind of comes from a few different places, but I would say that would probably be the biggest ones. And then also we were sent a lot of scripts and things from people. So, you know, it's, say you have a comic idea, but you're like, oh, I think this would maybe work better as a film or something like that. Again, just like getting started, say you want to make it into a film, you could be like, oh, I think I want to make this into a screenplay, and then kind of getting into that format is always helpful.
For every movie that gets made, how many things actually get like started and get into
Mm.
development and never make it much farther?
Oh,
Are we
like,
talking like 5, 10? Are we talking 50, 100?
gosh, I mean, so things are in different stages of development. So I worked for two people, and so each of my bosses had something like 10 to 12 projects in different stages of development. So everything from I was just reading this article last night and this story really struck with me. So I'm going to look into it. So that would count as like the beginning stage of development, everything up until this movie's coming out in 2 weeks. And we have this story that we've been working on for like 4 years or 5 years or something. And that also counts as like a part of development. So there's I don't know. It really depends on the studio again because our studio was pretty like our department was pretty small. I want to say there was only 4 or 5 executives. Usually it's more than that, but um, yeah, I think it just kind of depends. But yeah, I would say we get thousands and thousands of things, and we would read probably 10 scripts a week, something like that. And on top of that, then we would also be looking into, okay, oh, there's this game character that I really like. Maybe I'll pitch it to the team and say like, oh, I wonder if we can make something out of it. So it's things in different stages.
How often do you have like development meetings where you bring in some things that you've seen or whatever? And we'll take
Yeah,
Grayson's.
that was every week. Every week we would have a meeting where everyone in kind of the development team and then also our CCO and the president of DreamWorks, we would come all together and we would talk about projects that are in development. So we would be reading project scripts kind of as they go. And so, like, this is the first draft, for example, of the script for Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. This is the second draft, that sort of thing. But then also, we would come in and say, "Oh, I saw this thing last night, and I want to like submit it as something that I think we should look at," and that sort of thing as well.
I saw a tweet.
Yeah,
The movie,
exactly.
I don't know how that would happen. Can you give me an example of that? And then we'll take Grayson's question. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, no, well, so that wasn't specific to DreamWorks, but I don't know if people have heard of. I think there was a tweet where someone was like, oh, it was a picture I think from the Met Gala or like Fashion Week or something of Lupita Nyong'o and Rihanna, I think. And people were like, there was a tweet where someone said, "Oh, I would love to see these two in a spy thriller where Lupita is this da 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 and Rihanna is this da 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 da." And then it got so much traction on Twitter because people like really just loved that idea that eventually a production studio was like, "We should just make this with them." And so like I guess that original tweet would be an example of IP, I guess.
Is it? I mean, would the original tweeter like be they wouldn't get a writing credit or a story credit, but they'd get maybe an initial concept credit or something like that?
Yeah, maybe like an executive producer type thing. I'm not sure.
Amazing.
Executive producer means a lot of different things depending on who you are.
We need to get tweeting again.
Mhm.
Grayson, looks like you got a question.
Mm.
Yes. Hello. I mean, first of all, just,
Hello.
thank you for, coming to talk to us.
Yeah, of course.
So my question, I guess, is if you say you're the creator, you create your web comic, it gets picked up. Um, does it matter like I guess what I'm wondering is like, what's your involvement beyond that? Like, does it matter where you live? Do you tend to go in person to be a part of production or anything? I mean, yeah.
Are you saying like to pitch your idea or are you
Well,
saying what's
say that like I make a web comic and then like DreamWorks says like, oh, we want to make a movie out of that.
mm.
Is it just like, hey, we buy the rights from you and then like never talk to you again? Does the creator, does it vary? Does the creator, are they involved in the movie?
Yeah. So again, it depends. So it depends on how much you're like how much involvement you want to be in it. So if you're like, oh, I have this web comic and I want to write the screenplay. So that would be one thing, right? And that, but most people, I think, if it's just a concept of something, because you know, writing a comic book and writing a screenplay are two different things, right? And so people, I think, depending on how much you want to do, but then depending on how much experience you have as well, like there are a lot of, like, for example, someone of course would be more inclined to take a chance on someone like a Rebecca Sugar because, you know, they already know that she knows how to write for the big screen, right? And so it really depends, and sometimes they'll fly people out, sometimes they won't. What's nice is since the pandemic, a lot of people have been able to pitch from anywhere, like from different countries, from all kinds of different things. And you know, sometimes we have pitches that come from people who have already worked with us, but they take tons and tons and tons of pitches from all kinds of different people. So
That answer it, Grayson?
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Looks like Yao's got a question. Yao.
Hi. Thank you so much, Nicole, for this presentation. I'm curious about Instagram's comics because they're not really like web comics in like a professional sense, and also sometimes like if you're putting out a comic on Instagram, that's considered published, and so I'm just curious if you know come across Instagram comics, like what is the like what are the creators structure like? Are they like publishing elsewhere and the Instagram is like the free runoff, or are people like launching things on Instagram because there's like more people on it? So I just want to hear your perspective, like what you think of comics on Instagram.
Yeah, it seems like most people use Instagram to promote their comics. So they'll have, you know, an idea on Webtoons, or they'll have their own website where they put the full comic, but then they'll put on Instagram like, oh, this character in my comic, blah, blah, blah. And then they would put, you know, either some panels from the comic itself, or they would do an additional drawing and say like, this is the introduction to this character, or this is my this is the scene from this webcomic that I'm working on, my links in the bio, that sort of thing. And so a lot of times it seems like that's what happens. Actually, a lot of our interns use Instagram kind of as their portfolio in a lot of ways, or as part of their portfolio. So a lot of people, when they do their portfolio specifically for animation, they'll have it on a website and they'll have it behind like a password. But what's nice about Instagram is like having a little piece that's kind of accessible to everybody, because recruiters are actually looking through social media quite a lot. And so, you know, if they're looking for someone who, you know, they'd say they need a PA on something, or something like that, or an intern even, and they say, oh, this person applied to be an intern, to be like a story edit person, but I don't really know like what her style is. I'm not really sure, but like they check the Instagram, and you know, you can see all kinds of different examples of their comedic style, or their art style, that sort of thing. And so it kind of, it again depends on kind of how much you want to show of it. I would caution though, just with the event of AI and all kinds of different things, watermark everything. I would just say, if you are going to put it on social media where anybody can look at it and anyone can save your picture, and anyone, you know, I would just say to watermark it, because, you know, IP is something, but unless you copyright it, unless you like actually go through the, you know, the law to be able to do it, like technically anyone can steal it, which is upsetting. But
it used to be that if something was in print, it was technically defendable as copywritten in court. Something that shows up on social media or something.
Yeah, I think technically that is still the case, but unfortunately, like there's just so much. It's hard, I think, again, especially with AI, to tell like, oh, this was the first person that drew this, or this is, you know, this is this person's thing. And so yeah, I don't know. It's more complicated than ever, unfortunately.
Then you bring the Phineas and Ferb napkin and you say, no, it's me.
Exactly. I bet he still has that.
Can you tell us a little bit more about this Disney Webtoons connection? Is it that just they're kind of going to use Webtoons platform, or is there more to it?
Yeah, I believe there hasn't been a ton of details on it yet, but it seems like they're trying to either make some kind of like supplemental like app to kind of figure out okay, we're going to take these pieces that are like already part of Disney's lexicon, and so Marvel and Star Wars and all these different things, but we want to take some of the most popular things from Webtoons and also put it on our platform as well. Or they want to kind of make it a part of Disney Plus, and kind of, because something that I didn't realize until recently is that like Disney Plus actually has a lot of like anime and stuff on there. And so they're trying to kind of diversify, it seems like, even more, and have it be not just Disney movies and TV shows that are on there, but yeah, so it's
And this might be too in the weeds, but I know there's already like a Marvel app. Do you think they'll replace them
mm,
with the Disney app, or do you think?
that's a good question. I'm not sure, just because I'm not sure how much of it they want to be animated and how much of it they want to be live action, or both. Because I'm not super familiar with the Marvel app, but is that mostly live action?
No, it's for reading comics.
What's for? Oh, okay, yeah. So I would imagine I would imagine they're either going to replace it, or they're gonna just like change the name, like HBO and HBO Max or something.
So do you have any advice? You know, you said there's 50,000 to 200,000 comics coming out a year.
Mhm,
I don't know if
mhm.
that meant like single pages or new titles or
Yeah, so
big
that's
book.
kind of like self-published and otherwise. So like people even just putting stuff up on like a free app and being like, oh, this is my new idea or whatever. And people who have like little to no following to like huge followings. Yeah.
So to be so if we start, for instance, a new webtoon or something, and I think it's pretty easy to do a
Mm-hmm.
webtoon, right? Um, but then it just feels like it goes into like this deep ocean, and you're never gonna nobody's ever gonna see it. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
would you recommend? It sounded like from your presentation that you would recommend just like starting slow, build a small community, share it with your
Yeah.
friends and neighbors. Is that how to not feel invisible when you post on?
Yeah, yeah. I definitely would say so. I think, part of why I wanted to do this is because, I'm from Gainesville, which is like a small town, and I was gone for a while, at DreamWorks, and I came back, and just being able to like rediscover the art community here has been really really nice. And I think similar to what I'm forgetting the name of the person that asked the question earlier. I think a lot of people think Los Angeles, the entertainment industry is so far away and it's so inaccessible, and in a way that's true. But I would also say um, the internet is the biggest tool that you have right now, and I think particularly with I think things like TikTok have been a huge sway in terms of like people really finding their niche and deciding like, oh, I don't have to be like this huge big you know television writer, or I don't have to have this number one best times New York best time selling author. I can just kind of have my little community. And with the advent of like Patreon and all kinds of different things, you can kind of sustain yourself if you have a loyal, consistent fan base in that way, even if it's small.
Do you know our friend Derek Ballard in Gainesville? He silently stays home and works on Adventure Time and things like that.
What? Oh my
Yeah,
gosh,
put you in touch. Yeah.
that's so cool.
So we have a couple questions, one in the chat and two more hands up. So let's see what Sloan has.
Hi,
Good
hi Nicole. Thank you so much. This was great. I
Yeah.
super new to webcomics, so I have just a very general question. As someone who is used to um, working analog physical materials, how similar or different would you say the creative process is for webcomics versus a traditional approach? And I'm just assuming it might not be as simple as reformatting comics I've already, like illustration I've already scanned in.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I would say what's cool about the physical comic is like anything you can really do whatever you want with it. I think you can be like as creative as you want. You know, I see people all the time at conventions and all sorts of things. They'll literally just make a physical book out of like string and you know paper and all kinds of different things, and they'll sell that you know at a convention. Whereas with web comic, I believe it's you know it's digital for the most part. So there is some kind of like very specific skills that you need to have for that, and you have to kind of understand um, like the framing and everything in a slightly different way. But I would say for the sorry, can you could you repeat the second part of your question?
Yeah, I'm wondering like it if it's not as simple as just uh reformatting a comic I've already scanned in, and so like it's
Mm,
already digitized for whatever
mm,
the web comics format is.
mhm,
What are some of the things that people take into consideration when they're creating web comics that they might not have
mm,
to focus on if you're doing like physical comics?
mm. Well, I mean, depending on how big you want to go with it. So, like, you know, Webtoons is a free platform, but there are certain restrictions and things put in place there. So, I know, for example, they have like, you know, a content policy similar to most social media sites where, you know, you can't draw a webcomic with like nudity in it and things like that. Whereas if you just want to make like your own physical, you know, idea, you can sell that pretty much anywhere, and you can self-publish it yourself, you know. And so I think what's great about comics in general is that you know you kind of have the power to kind of take it wherever you want, depending on how big you want it to be, depending on what format you want it to be in. And so yeah, I would just like encourage people to just like play around with lots of different formats and things and just be creative.
Thank you.
Cool.
Yeah.
I put some specs in the chat that Webtoons says, like as far as size and pixels and stuff like that. And that's
Mm,
Webtoons, if anybody's interested.
mhm,
Sarah's got a question.
Hi, Nicole. Thank you so much for your presentation. I really enjoyed it. I have a question about like social media followers.
mm,
So I remember in school, it was a very heavy influence on if you don't have the followers, then you're not going to be seen as someone who is like reputable or just someone to be taken seriously. And
mm.
I was wondering like how serious is that still today? And like what's a good measure to like kind of like for as a beginner going back into like social media marketing myself. And if you
Mm.
and second part, do you have any tips to start that process as like just trying to gain a following on social media?
Yeah. Do you mean following in terms of like the entertainment space or just in terms of the web comic in general?
I think just like in general across the board, because I know like some people they're like, oh, you don't have 100,000 followers, you're
Mm-hmm.
not worth my time, kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I would say there are tons of great artists and tons of like amazing small communities. Like I was saying that, you know, people are able to sustain and self-publish themselves because they were able to kind of like I said before, make a kind of small community of people that are consistent and are very loyal to, you know, your idea and your characters and your storyline. And so I really and maybe this is a personal thing, but I don't particularly look at that sort of thing in terms of like, you know, whether something is like worth my time. I would say, I mean, the entertainment industry is a little bit different, but in terms of just like making the webtoon and putting it out online, I would say there is no such thing as like, you know, you have too small of a following to be able to do it or anything like that. It's really just, do you have the ability? Do you have the support? Do you have the skill in a lot of different ways? And even if you don't have the skill, even if you know, are not particularly an artist, like I would not consider myself particularly an artist, but I'm also making, you know, a webcomic in my free time. And so, it's something that, you know, if you're passionate about it and you're able to put it out there, people will take note of it, even if it is a small following, even at first. You know, there are, like I said before, there were a ton of webcomics that, you know, had a very, very small start, but then, you know, years and years later, you know, a production company was looking for something new and something that, you know, connects with Gen Z, especially now, is all people are looking at. And, you know, they were able to say, oh, this thing came out a couple years ago and, you know, it has a really interesting story and people are talking a lot right now about this particular thing. And so maybe we should bring this person in and look into it. And similarly, outside of entertainment, I think every once in a while there's that story that, you know, maybe was just put out, but then you know, years later it just blows out of nowhere. To answer your second part of your question, in terms of growing your following, I would say consistency is the biggest thing. And in terms of growing your audience as well, I think if people are able to say like, oh, I have this to look forward to every couple of, you know, days or every week or that sort of thing. And I think that's where like Patreon and Kickstarters and those things come into play, is if people they have this expectation of, oh, I'm going to get, you know, say I subscribe to this person's Patreon and I'm paying $10 a month or something like that. In that tier or whatever, they could say like, oh, I'm in the meantime, until this story comes out, I'm sending everyone in this tier, you know, a free sticker, or I'm sending them, you know, a preview of the next chapter, or I'm sending, you know, all these different things. It's you know, I think people can sense that like passion if you're really passionate about it, and you're allowed to be, I think, a little annoying when you're when you're promoting yourself. And so I think, you know, sharing it not just kind of in your circles, but then, yeah, like just finding that niche and being able to go into, I think, you know, I mentioned social media, you know, there are tons of Discord servers that are for web comics and are for comics in general and animation and, you know, any sort of thing that you're interested in. Same thing with Reddit, same thing. I don't know if people still use Tumblr, but I'm sure that's a thing as well. And so, yeah, I would just encourage people to look into, like, specifically if you're interested in, for example, horror comics, or if you're interested in, you know, coming of age romance, things like that. There are tons and tons of forums and things online for people like that, and you can reach out to different people in the community and be like, oh, I'm working on this webcomic. Do you guys have any tips as far as, you know, making this character more interesting, or what's a good way to get more people's eyes on it? And they can give you advice on that as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Nicole. Looks like Jason's got a question, and then we'll finish up with Carol.
I want to thank you as well for this. It's such a different, unique pro call with all of your experiences. It's kind of it's a different experience that I've seen from other pro calls, and it's sort of like a blind spot that's been filled up here. And you're from the original back in the day Saw, and you have just a small network on LinkedIn, which kind of blows me away.
Yeah,
because you have such far-reaching, you know, global impacts in your professional career. You say you're not an artist, but I think you're an artist, despite what your day job may be, right? So my question really is, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was saying thank you.
You're welcome. It's impressive. I can't believe you're from my generation. It just doesn't. You don't look like you could be from my generation, but you mentioned things that only our generation would know. So besides Instagram, there's this new, you know, it's not brand new, but it's pretty new platform on Substack, which I see. I mean, I joined it because it said it was for creatives, and there's a ton of video stuff going on for political reasons, but there are a lot of artists on there I was wondering if you've reached out through that branch yet.
Oh no, I haven't. What's the name of it?
Substack.
Okay, yeah. No, I've used Substack before, but I haven't kind of used it too.
It's pretty flexible for all the other platforms as well. I'm just not a real big fan of Instagram because they have that certain size limit of images you can put on there, and it squares them off, so you lose some of your picture. And I fought them in court for a year over a trademark dispute, which I won, and they were really nasty after that and forced me out anyway. So just not an IG fan.
No, I think that's another good example though of like having your own little community of people, because it's similar. It's a subscription type service. I mean, I believe, I'm not super familiar with Substack, but I believe there's like, usually you get like a free something, and then if you subscribe to like the pro version or whatever else, then you can get like more. And so that's another great example of like being
so far they're free, I think. They're still a startup, and they, I don't know what series round they're in, but it probably will turn into that where they'll have the upper echelon of services available. Hopefully they'll have something, I think, that you mentioned several times. I noticed you mentioned several times about this passion for your art and for your endeavors, for what you want to put out there in the world. Hopefully they'll have the upper echelon one be really focused on people with passion who want to highlight and something into the world that makes a difference.
Yeah,
that's definitely the feeling I get from your talk.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, I think it's really important. I think especially right now, like not just the art world, but the entertainment space in general is kind of struggling right now. But I think the people who are staying in it are gonna come out on the other side of the people who would do it, whether they make money or not, And I think, kind of staying in it, and again, like being consistent, I think really is the biggest thing.
And believing in yourself and being the squeaky wheel. And it's okay for you to be a little bit hyper excited about it. I'll finish with this last thing. I heard recently science has proven that events here in the present have actually, they can change things that were facts in the past, which is an incredible thing. But it's based on quantum physics.
How did we get here, Jason? Keep going. I'm interested, but I must have missed
it. So this is why is that creative types are the only ones who really will create something new that can possibly influence what's observed in the past. And I think maybe that's something that we are actually here to do as types.
You think we're affecting the past right now?
I think we can. I don't know if we're doing it now, but I think that it's possible. And it's already a scientific proven fact that it happens in quantum physics.
That's pretty awesome. Well, I have a question about the past. Maybe we can end on that. Jason, I appreciate that. Thanks for that. And someday you're going to have to send us post something about this whole trademark dispute you've mentioned before.
Okay. I can show you lots of harassment.
All right. Okay. So I'll end by just asking a question. And then we can sign off. I really appreciate this, Nicole. Quibi, what the heck is Quibi? How did I miss that?
Yeah. So, gosh, I think it was 2019 or 2020. Speaking of DreamWorks, so Jeffrey Katzenberg, who was one of the original founders of DreamWorks, put out basically an app that is like TikTok. So it's vertical video and that sort of thing, but it is all scripted. So it was tons and tons and tons of like huge actors and actresses, like big directors, like all different things. And it was short form video. So it was like everything I think was under 10 minutes. And you could scroll through and do all these different things. But this was like literally right when the pandemic happened and everyone was on TikTok instead. And so people were like, oh, okay, well, I'm not really going to class anymore, so I don't really have a need to like watch this thing on my way to, if I'm on the bus or like, whatever this other thing is. Like if I want to watch a drama, like I'll just go home and watch drama, right? And so people kind of segmented, I think. And yeah, I know a lot about that because I was in grad school when it happened, and I was in school for TV production and management, and we actually had to do a project where we had to download it for a week and like play in it and like kind of figure out what it was about. And yeah, people were not happy about it.
I'll change the past by going and researching that a little more. Nicole, thank you so much, and I hope you'll come back and tell us more about all sorts of things that happen in your future and our future as well.
Yeah, let me actually let me put my website in here before I leave.
Oh yeah, that would be great.
All right, I just put it in the chat if anyone's interested, and yeah, if anyone has any other questions, you know, I'm an open book. I'm on
so much.
media more than I should. So
I'll ask everybody to unmute, give you a round of applause. Nicole, thank you so much. And when
Yay!
I'll see
Thank
there.
you so much. Thank you, Nicole. That was so cool.
Thank you.
thank
you.
Check me on LinkedIn.
You really spiced up the day.
No.
Totally. Yeah,
Thank
that
you.
was awesome. Thank you.
Bye.
See you in the funny papers.
Next time.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us. This has been a production of the Sequential Artists Workshop, or SAW. You can find us on social media at Comics Workshop and online at sawcomics.org. You can hear about our many courses at learn.sawcomics.org. SAW is a nonprofit and supported by people like you. Learn how to make a tax-deductible donation at the donate page of sawcomics.org. You can join our free community of comics explorers at members.sawcomics.org. Thanks so much for being here.